You know, at the very heart of one of the most disturbing scandals of our time, there's this financial black hole. We're talking about Jeffrey Epstein, a disgraced financier, a convicted sex offender, and a college dropout from a pretty normal working-class family. And yet, when he died in 2019, he left behind a fortune so huge and so mysterious, it still has journalists and investigators just scratching their heads.
And look, this wasn't just some tabloid rumor. That quote, that's from federal prosecutors. When they were bringing charges against Epstein in 2019, they were genuinely stunned by the scale of his wealth. They saw him as the mastermind of a massive trafficking operation who had the financial power to do pretty much anything he wanted. The real puzzle, the one that remains, is how on earth did he get that power in the first place? So what does nearly infinite means actually look like? Well, get a load of this. We're talking a net worth of around $600 million. An empire that included a $77 million mega mansion in Manhattan and not one, but two private islands. He even had his own private air force, including a Boeing 727, the kind of jet that normally carries 150 people. This was just staggering, undeniable financial power.
Which, brings us right back to the central question, where did all of this money come from? It's a question that should have a pretty simple answer. But when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, absolutely nothing is simple.
Okay, so to even start digging for answers, we've got to look at his official story, right? The career path he supposedly took. But as you're about to see, that story starts to completely fall apart almost immediately. And what it reveals is this improbable rise built on a really clear pattern of just evading consequences. Let's just walk through this for a second, because it's wild. In the 70s, he somehow gets a teaching job at the super elite Dalton School with no college degree, and then he gets fired. But a connection he made there gets him a job at the investment bank Bear Stearns, where he rockets to partner in just 4 years. A year later, he's forced out. Then he links up with a guy named Stephen Hoffenberg, whose firm turns out to be one of the biggest Ponzi schemes in U.S. history. Hoffenberg gets 18 years in prison, and Epstein, he walks away. No charges, nothing. You see the pattern forming, right? Access to elite circles, followed by misconduct, followed by zero accountability. And that pattern, ducking any real consequences, it just kept going after Epstein left Bear Stearns and started his own money management firm. So now let's try to follow the money, looking at the sources of his income that we actually know about and the ones we can only suspect. So, Epstein's firm, J. Epstein & Company, made this absolutely extraordinary claim. It would only manage money for clients with a net worth of over $1 billion. I mean, to put that into perspective, at that time, there were fewer than 500 billionaires on the entire planet. He was basically claiming to operate in the most exclusive financial club imaginable. So you're probably wondering, how many of these ultra-exclusive clients did he actually land? The number of publicly confirmed long-term clients is 1. That's it. Just 1. Yep, that one client was Les Wexner, the billionaire founder of L Brands, and their financial relationship was, to put it mildly, deeply weird. Wexner gave Epstein sweeping power of attorney, and at one point, he just transferred ownership of his $77 million Manhattan mansion straight to Epstein for no recorded payment. Wexner later came out and accused Epstein of stealing at least $46 million from him. But here's the thing. Even with this bizarre Wexner connection, the math just doesn't add up. Not even close. It doesn't get us anywhere near that $600 million number. So we have to ask again, where did the rest of the money come from? Well, okay, another huge chunk of cash came from billionaire Leon Black, the co-founder of Apollo Global Management. He reportedly paid Epstein $158 million. The official reason? For what Black called tax advice and estate planning. And get this? Even after Epstein's 2008 conviction, Black kept working with him, saying he believed in second chances. So here's the really crucial point. Even when you add up these gigantic documented payments from some of the richest people on the planet, you're still left with these massive gaps. The known deals just don't explain the private islands, the Boeing 727, and hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank. The story doesn't hold up. So since the money trail goes cold, it leads you to a whole different theory, right? What if the whole money management thing was just a cover? What if Epstein's true business wasn't about money at all, but about influence, secrets, and access? And a huge piece of evidence pointing in that direction is something called the birthday book. Now, this wasn't some Hallmark card. It was a 238-page leather-bound scrapbook that Ghislaine Maxwell put together for Epstein's 50th birthday. And it's filled with all these personal notes and inside jokes from his powerful circle of friends. And the stuff written inside, wow. It is incredibly revealing. Take this little limerick from an industrialist named Stuart Peaver. It ends with the line, "Though up to no good whenever he could, has avoided the penitentiary." This was written 3 years before the first abuse allegations went public. It really suggests his behavior was kind of an open secret, maybe even a twisted joke among his friends. Then you have another entry, reportedly from Donald Trump, that ends with this cryptic line, "May every day be another wonderful secret." I mean, that message just perfectly captures the kind of world Epstein was living in, one built on secrets and a kind of silent understanding that some things are better left in the dark. You see, Epstein's primary tool was access. That's what he was really selling. The flight logs from his private jet show him flying with presidents like Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. He had a 15-year friendship with Trump. And right at the center of this whole web was Ghislaine Maxwell, whose testimony revealed played a key role in normalizing the abuse for his victims. This entire network has fueled the persistent theory that Epstein was using hidden cameras to get dirt on people, that secrets, not stocks, were his real currency. And all of this brings us to the final and maybe most frustrating part of this whole thing. After his death, after all these years of investigations, why is the full story of his wealth and his influence still such a deep, profound mystery? And right here, you can see the huge disconnect. The official story from the Department of Justice is this: there was no incriminating client list, no real evidence of blackmail, and Epstein's death was a suicide. But that directly contradicts years of public expectation and has only thrown gasoline on the fire of suspicion and conspiracy theories about a cover-up. And that feeling of a cover-up, it definitely wasn't helped when authorities recently announced something just stunning. They'd found over 1 million more documents that could be relevant to the case. A discovery like that just causes more delays and makes you feel like the full story is still being deliberately buried. So what about the actual money? Where did it all go? Well, just 2 days before he died, Epstein moved all his assets into a secret trust, basically hiding who would get the money from public view. Now, over $164 million has been paid out to victims from a compensation fund. But there's still more than $200 million left over. And the single biggest remaining asset? A $170 million stake in Peter Thiel's venture capital fund, an investment nobody even knew about until recently. And in the end, it all just leaves us with this one final, really haunting question. When you have a case where official records are kept sealed, where some of the most powerful names in the world are involved, and where huge piles of new documents just keep appearing out of nowhere, it forces you to wonder, what is the full truth that we may never, ever know?